Since he was first introduced in the pages of the Amazing Fantasy number 15 back in the early 1960s, Spider-Man has come face to face with some of the Marvel Universe's greatest villains. But you can't keep a good spider down, no matter how many enemies he has. He's fought everything from burglars and muggers to world-dominating madmen and evil scientists. Seeing as he's gone toe-to-toe with some of the Marvel Universe's biggest bads, his rogues gallery is filled to the brim with incredibly dangerous foes, and each one offers a different means of applying pressure on our friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. Whichever villain he faces, Spider-Man is often pushed to his limit, and these 10 bad guys represent the most dangerous foes he's ever faced. Some have unmasked him, some have even gone so far as to kill him, but Spidey keeps coming back to battle them, no matter the cost. I am Kirsten from What Culture Comics, and these are 10 of the most dangerous Spider-Man villains. Number 10. Mysterio. On the surface, it doesn't seem like Mysterio would be a very dangerous foe. After all, he has no superpowers of his own, and he's little more than just a master of stagecraft and special effects. Despite this, he's become one of the most dangerous enemies Spider-Man has faced over the years. This was clear to anyone who saw Spider-Man Far From Home, but even Jake Gyllenhaal's outstanding performance of the character's drive was just a taste of what Mysterio is capable of when going up against Spider-Man. His obsession with theatrics and ability to create a scene has caused a lot of problems for old Webhead over the years. He once had him convinced that he was shrunken down to only a few inches in height, and he played off increasingly dangerous and deadly theatrics to achieve his goals. Interestingly, he's still a threat to Spider-Man despite his spider sense, and it often takes a lot of work for Spidey to defeat him. Still, he's not perfect, and he is just a man. He's dangerous enough to find a place on this list, but he's kicking it off at number 10 due to the fact that there are still ways to counter his illusions. He's gone up against Daredevil a time or two, and the man without fear doesn't fall for his tricks, so a team-up can often render him innocuous. Number 9. Kraven the Hunter. Kraven is one of the most dangerous foes in Spider-Man's rogues gallery due to the fact that he won't stop until he achieves his goal, and the man is basically a maniacal psychopath. Having hunted all the dangerous game in the world and finding himself lacking in prey, he settled on taking on the most dangerous game. He wasn't going to just hunt some poor schmo on an island somewhere, no. Kraven opted to hunt the Spider-Man. Kraven has come for Spidey many times, and in one story arc he killed him. Well, maybe not kill him, but he did dose him with a major tranquilizer and buried him in a grave for a little while. When Spider-Man dug his way out, he found that Kraven had killed himself, having finished his hunt. Of course, Kraven didn't stay dead for long, and he's arranged numerous hunts targeting both Spider-Man and any other related characters in the Marvel Universe. He's incredibly smart, stealthy, and deadly to anything or anyone he's targeted for a hunt. Number 8. Electro. Max Dillon, aka Electro, was one of Spider-Man's deadliest enemies almost as soon as he was introduced in The Amazing Spider-Man number 9 back in 1964. The guy has the ability to control electricity, and that makes him somewhat hard to handle. Electro can charge himself from electricity surrounding him, which makes him dangerous in most places on the planet. He started out going after cash to pay for the equipment he needed to keep himself charged, but over time Electro upped his game to killing, and he's done a lot of killing. He became a deadly threat to Spidey and a number of other heroes, including Daredevil. What makes Electro one of Spider-Man's most dangerous villains isn't the fact that he's a murderer who can channel electricity however he wants. Sure, it's a point in his favour, but what really makes Electro dangerous is the way in which he continues to evolve. He becomes more and more powerful over time, and while he started with the ability to channel electricity, his list of powers has grown over the years. He can manipulate the bioelectricity in a person's brain, disrupting their ability to control their own body. He can also control electromagnetism, which puts him on par with Magneto, so he's not an easy foe to defeat. Number 7. Hobgoblin. There have been a number of people to take on the role of Hobgoblin over the years, and pretty much each and every one of them was an unstable madman capable of a great deal of destruction. The first manifestation came in form of Roderick Kingsley in The Amazing Spider-Man number 238, back in 1983. He's the name most often associated with the character, and he's one of the most ruthless villains Spider-Man has ever fought. He took it upon himself to alter Norman Osborn's Goblin formula to improve upon the original Green Goblin persona, and in many ways it worked. When going up against an enemy, he will stop at nothing to use lethal force, and he's even done this against his allies on occasion. While the Hobgoblin is dangerous regardless of who is donning the costume, he's never been as insidious as his predecessor, the Green Goblin. Still, he's not a villain Spider-Man can disregard, as he's more than willing to go on a killing spree to get whatever he wants. Number 6. Sandman. Sandman is one of the more interesting supervillains, taking a spot on Spider-Man's rogues gallery, as he's tried to go straight on more than one occasion. He's also ridiculously OP, but when he first started out, he was quite the opposite. While he could be taken out by transforming him into a pile of mud, that only worked for so long before he could reconstitute himself. And let's not forget about that one time Spidey beat him with a vacuum cleaner. Yes, really. He's actually an upper-level villain. He's gone toe-to-toe with the likes of Wonder Man and the Incredible Hulk, so he's got it where it counts in terms of power. He's also able to take a hit without really feeling it, and can either let his opponent's blows pass harmlessly through him, or he can enhance his density, making him near indestructible. Sandman is also pretty close to being immortal, seeing as he is made up of millions of pieces of sand, and he can use the sand around him in the environment to rebuild his body. Seeing as there is no shortage of sand on the planet, there's not much of a chance Sandman can ever be taken out for good. Number 5. Venom. Venom started out as a character fueled entirely by hatred towards Spider-Man. The symbiote hated Peter Parker for abandoning it, and Eddie Brock blamed him for tanking his career. The two bonded over this hatred, and one of the first things they did to Parker was to threaten and intimidate his wife. This was a villain unlike any other Spider-Man had faced before, as Venom possessed an intimate knowledge of all things Peter Parker. He had all of his superpowers, he was undetectable by his Spidey sense, and he was more than willing to kill someone in order to achieve his goal, which was mostly to kill Spider-Man. Essentially, Venom was an evil version of Spider-Man, and he was stronger, capable of camouflage, and he knew exactly where to strike his enemy to do the most damage. One of the key elements to the symbiote that makes it particularly dangerous is that it can learn and copy superpowers from anyone it bonds with. Over time, the accumulation of abilities makes Venom a potentially deadlier foe, and it doesn't help that the symbiote can easily reproduce itself whenever it feels like it. Number 4. Carnage. Carnage was the first offspring to come from the Venom symbiote. It happened when Eddie Brock was sprung from prison, and as he left through a hole in the wall, a part of the symbiote remained behind. It bonded with his cellmate, a lovely fellow named Cletus Cassidy. Unfortunately, when you bond a newly born symbiote with a serial killer who has more than a few screws loose, the result is an insanely deadly monster who is nearly unstoppable. Add to that the fact that the symbiote bonded through a cut in Cassidy's hand, making their bond stronger than Brock's and Venom's. The newly formed Carnage escaped from prison immediately, and he went about killing people indiscriminately, and far more violently than his progenitor. Venom is strong, but Carnage is stronger, and because Cassidy is insane, he's unreasonable, unpredictable, and about as close to a terrifying monster as you're going to get in a Spider-Man comic. The only way Spider-Man was able to take him out after he first came on the scene was to team up with Venom. He made a pact with his deadliest enemy to take out someone far more powerful and deadlier, and that says something as to how serious a threat Carnage was right out of the gate. Number 3. Dr. Octopus. When Dr. Otto Octavius first turned to supervillainy, he wasn't the most threatening foe Spider-Man had ever faced. He was really just a guy who had some cool mechanical arms, but a little webbing applied to his face, a bop on top of the head, and he was out for the count. Over time, Doc Ock got better at going up against Spider-Man, as he truly saw the webhead as his nemesis. He created more advanced tentacles, he allied himself with other villains capable of following his lead, and he terrorized Spider-Man throughout the 60s and beyond. Doc Ock was also the first supervillain to unmask Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man number 12, but Pete was able to play it off as a decoy sort of ploy, as he wasn't feeling up to being Spider-Man at the time. The two continued to butt heads over the years, but it wasn't until issue number 700 that the Doc showed just how dangerous he could be. Doc Ock managed to swap minds with his nemesis, and his former body, which now contained the mind of Peter Parker, ended up dying, leaving him to carry on in Pete's body as the superior Spider-Man. He killed his enemy, took his place, and lived his life in his place. Number 2. Green Goblin. Peter Parker has his fair share of villains, but few have gotten as close to him as Norman Osborn. The Green Goblin was an evil monster right from the beginning, and what's worse, his identity was hidden from Spider-Man, as well as the readers, for a long time. When he finally revealed himself to be Osborn, he hit Peter Parker from all sides, taking him on as Spider-Man, but also going after his personal life by targeting the people closest to him. Things weren't easy for Spider-Man, but they went from bad to nightmarish when Goblin went after his girlfriend. It was the Green Goblin who took Gwen Stacy to the top of a bridge and threw her over the edge. Spider-Man attempted to save her, but his webbing ended up snapping her neck, and when he pulled her up to him, she was dead. From that point forward, Osborn was Peter Parker's most hated enemy. Osborn is dangerous in other ways, as he's managed to manipulate the government to attain positions of power. Following the Secret Invasion events, he found his way to lead Hammer, and he used his power to devastate far more than just Spider-Man's world, making him dangerous in more ways than one. Number 1. Morlun. Morlun isn't just dangerous to Spider-Man, he's dangerous to all manner of Spider-Men, Spider-Women, and Spider-People from across the entirety of the multiverse. Morlun comes from Earth 001, and he feeds off the energy of Spider Totems, moving from one universe to the next, where he finds Spider-Man and kills him to take his power. Morlun is a member of the Inheritors, and he's ridiculously OP, making him more than capable of swatting Spider-Man from any universe like a fly. He's also insanely tough to beat, as he's taken a massive beating from the Earth 616 Spider-Man, which went through buildings and across town. When it was done, Peter was near exhaustion, and Morlun barely looked as if he noticed. When he walked over to Pete, he casually plucked his eye out of his head and ate it right then and there. Morlun nearly killed Peter after that, but was fought off after he assaulted Mary Jane. He's been seemingly killed a few times, but the only way that he was properly defeated was during the Spider-Verse event. It became necessary to form an army of Spider-Men from all over the multiverse so that they could go up against Morlun to defeat him. He's easily the deadliest for any version of Spider-Man to go up against, and he's killed Spider-Man more than anyone else. And there we go, the most dangerous Spider-Man villains. Who was your favourite Spider-Man villain? Personally, for me, it always has to be Green Goblin, but let us know down below what you think in the comments. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. But for now, I have been Kirsten from What Culture Comics, and I will see you in the next video.